Hello, this is Lisa Lee and welcome to this week's enrichment. We are entering into a conversation. It's weird because this reading is coming up in such a strange way for me. I sat down, I'm in the meditation, and I kind of like started in this meditation a little bit at odds with them because they've been showing me stuff this week that is like not what I would think I would get when I started this week, and I kind of understood at a subliminal level that we were going to get into forgiveness a little bit because I was in a bad mood and I was like unforgiving the entire universe. And so I was like, okay, so this is a topic, this is a thing. And so what my guides have been showing me is horrible things that are like unforgivable as like part of this like whole lesson on like what forgiveness ends up being or how we like start to grapple with it. The stuff I'm getting is like these visions of like unforgivable things just here. I did a reading this week, a pick a card reading, where I saw this vision of like the emperor's daughter who was like trapped in, a castle, like not able to participate with life. And I can't get that vision out of my head. And every single time I think about forgiveness, I think about the emperor's slaves and like his daughter being the most intimate and also in some ways the most insidious because there was no room for herself. Like with every other slave in his kingdom, he was like a monster, this emperor, but with his daughter, like she didn't even have room for her own existence, for her own self. She didn't even have room for her own self-expression. It was like complete and total the conquering of another. And obviously it didn't work because like the sin at the heart of that stronghold that is felt by so many, I think, because I think it's an ancient story that is an archetype, which means it had existed in several places at once for the purpose of like some kind of engineering. It's something to overcome within ourselves for sure. But like when we come to this place of like, how do we grapple with forgiveness with these unspeakable things that we can like have a felt knowing of, even if we don't have like a direct knowing of? Like, how do we talk about forgiveness in any like reasonable way without actually starting at the part that says I can't forgive several things? There's a list. I've got a list of stuff that like that's the stuff that I cannot forgive. And so this is where we start with the reading on the technology of forgiveness, not with the like exalting of the forgiving martyr, but rather with the unforgivable things and a question mark to like celestial parents that says, what is this technology of faith called forgiveness, you say? That's kind of where we're entering in. And so there's an advocate aspect. There's some kind of a thing here with like an advocate coming in. I want to organize this reading just like a little bit differently. Because when I first sat down, I was like, all the stuff that I've been shown is actually like really beautiful, sort of like amazingly beautiful, but it requires like crossing a river from one perspective to another. And this forgiveness thing is like, we want to get to that beautiful, but we need to be able to cross the river at forgiveness. And so the way that we're going to enter this properly is personally. And so we are going to, with our guides right now, actually like attend to the question, who do I need to forgive, or who do I want to forgive? Need and want are kind of the same for a certain kind of a reason. Who do I need and sort of want to forgive because for my own benefit I need to forgive them? And what is that forgiveness? Like, what is forgiveness? What is the technology of forgiveness? And like, why is this even going to work? But I need it to, so it's like, so we're going in with like, who do you need to forgive? And I think we're going to do more than one. And so the way that we're going to manage doing that is like a pick a card reading. And so this is going to be a pick a card reading, but not really. It's going to be like a place mark so we can look at the different people that you need to forgive. But in terms of like what's going to come up for individuals when they see who they need to forgive, like I also want them to be able to hop around and like go to like a different, like if you're not ready to forgive that one, maybe like the other pile, you can do like the forgiving and just kind of get into what the technology means before you have to attend to like the greatest pain point. So I want to like, I'm coming in with sort of like a knowledge and gnosis that all three piles will be relevant, but how you take them is going to depend on like how you're feeling, like you can manage with that. So we're first going to identify what these piles are. The number 6 is coming up, and so the first pile is going to be the numerology is going to be like 6. It's going to be moving from a place of chaos to a place of calm. a place of like raging without ceasing into a place of like complete and total that thing is now irrelevant. Let's see, who do you need to forgive along those lines? It's pretty broad, but so this is a forgiveness needs to happen for you to get calmer in life, for you to have less like panic, actually. The Don Juan. Woo! And the Samaritan. Oh man. So this is going to be pile number. It's going to be pile number 1. I'll put the timestamps down below as like piles, as pile number 1. So this one's coming up first. It's pile number 1. If you feel like you can handle like having to forgive this Don Juan who you were a Samaritan to, then we're gonna do that here. If not, check below. There's gonna be timestamps, and take these forgivenesses as they are most comfortable. Because again, back to this technology forgiveness. The technology of forgiveness depends upon there being a greater love for humanity, a greater love for the concept of like the soul within the body. You know, it's such a big, broad view that you have to take to make it work sometimes, that you can't look at the details of what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. At the heart of what forgiveness is, if we look at the forgiveness technology that we see in religious stories, and Jesus is the one who like hallmarked this one, it's always, because forgiveness is always illogical. The reason why it kind of like works in the way that it works, the reason why the technology doesn't ever fail to release you from whatever karma like was, you know, wrapping you up in knots, soul ties of every, I'm like seeing a puppet. It's an act of love. It's weird. It's weirdly an act of love for yours. Like, I'm losing this channel so badly just right this moment. Yeah, I guess it is hard to come in with Don Juan and the Samaritan. Like, I realized while I was giving you guys choices about which piles to pick that I wasn't going to get to pick the piles. Like, I was going to have to go in from, like, where we are. And so, like, we're getting started with, like, a really difficult, like, the premise here is that an unforgivable thing now has to become forgivable. And so with the Samaritan and the Don Juan, this is going to be where your like beauty in one way or another, that like sanctity of like romantic attraction was desecrated with the Samaritan energy. I want to learn what that actually means. You're helping someone who everyone else would prefer to ignore, and for some reason there's a romantic quality here, and like, what are we looking at? It's almost like the worst kind of pain with your love, the lover, and Eros. This is gonna be, we're gonna have to work on forgiving this person who like took your love for a ride. Did something very unholy here. Let's get more information. So when we're working on technologies forgiveness, like this is going to be tough stuff. Like there's just, it's got like an unpleasant quality, and I guess I should try to feel the energies as they appear. So I just want to say that like in terms of the energies that we're working with, I wanted to work with the energy of the divine union, the divine mother, the divine father, and consciousness is birthed. That's their co-creation right there. That's the Christ energy, and so I really wanted to work with them, and it's a less jargony kind of energy. It's more like imbued almost, and so like what we're getting in terms of energies that are stepping forward around this are energies that like look really battered and bruised, especially around the heart chakra, chest area. The Samaritan was going to be like the person who needed love more than anyone else too. Like the Samaritan is not just like, the technology of the Samaritan, as I'm seeing it right now in archetypal forms, is the person who sees themselves in that dying body on the side of the road. Because for some reason they've been there. For some reason they know that they've been there. And so like it's such an act of love for the self to attend to humanity as if humanity was the self, right? And there is no greater love. Like, you know, there is a verse somewhere, there's no greater love than the love you have, that you lay down your life for another. And even though helping someone on the side of the road is not laying down your life for another, you always take this risk in the same way that you take the risk when you're giving birth. Any person who's birthing, who gives birth, takes a risk of dying through that laboring process in one way or another. Like, something can die or be dead, or like there is always that risk in that life-giving process that it won't come to fruition, that the creation will fail, and that the creator can fail with the creation, as is like nature has this template with pregnancy. And help is a similar thing, like that, like moving forward in that energy of, I don't know who you are. You could be my murderer. You could be my destroyer, but you seem to need help, and I see that you need help, and so I'm going to stop and I'm going to be with you. And I'm going to treat you as I would treat myself, and I'm going to use the resources I have for myself for you, and I'm gonna make sure that you're okay. And I'm taking that risk because of a greater love with humanity. Like, you know, that's a heart for humanity. That's a heart of God. That's God's heart for humanity when we think about what it is to represent these divine energies on earth. And so when we pair that with the Don Juan and the Lover and Eros, this is a very sticky mess. It's not an easy forgiveness process to go through. So one of the first things I want to say about this technology of forgiveness is that it's ugly. It's often really ugly. It's often so ugly that we do not want to look at it. We do not want to see the parts of ourselves that ended up like this combination is a type. This is a type of exploitation with the divine in the shadow attribute of the Don Juan. We have using the power of romantic attraction for private agendas. And then in the light attribute, it spotlights your positive, seductive qualities. So this is going to be the story. And now, like, when we, like, and I hope that the music is not too loud. You know, I put music on. Well, this is a victory. I'm going to lower it, and this is just going to happen, even though it ruins the, like, the moment a little bit. I have music in the background that's actually driving me a little bit crazy. I was trying to, like, do something about the fan sound. But these violins are not it. They're not it. Not it. So, the fan stands. The fan is needed. The oracle requires there to be a noisy fan in this environment because of climate being what it is. So anyway, so here we are sort of trying to get back into this space. I'm sorry to have to break that up. I was getting like really pulled out of the channel by the screeching violins. And I think that might be something that like is important to this message, that attending to this is going to be hitting on like the most tender, like portals to like such levels of personal, like tender, loving pain. I don't know, because I'm seeing this kind of pain that it's almost like a self-pity. I'm not gonna lie. There's a type of self-pity, and even I've engaged in this, so like, you know, no one's judging anybody, but there is a type of self-pity that is enjoyable. It's delicious. I mean, some of us know what this is. Some of us like know what these moments are. It's kind of a weird love. And so we have to be careful when we come in to look at what it means to forgive in this space, because there's still so much love in it. There's so many portals to places of reverie and like divine appreciation, escape routes. You know, like the story that is wrapped up in this is probably a story that we love. That's what I'm kind of getting to. So this is a story, if we're looking at it as like an archetypal form, that we would want to like engage with or walk into and like move our life breath, our experience into that story, become part of it. We're looking at that story about the underdog in one way or another. And like, it's a beautiful story, you know, it's this beautiful story about, you know, the maid in the chamber like falls in love with the king or something, you know, two different places, like, you know, and that the love story is actually simultaneously like a one person is stepping down from a place of comfort and ease into a place of putting romance and love first. Basically throwing everything else under the bus for love. Like running away from home for love, running away from, you know, the empire for love. This is going to be the story where we have the Emperor's Daughter. So if you haven't watched that reading, it's a pick a card reading I posted called The Story That You're Stuck In, or something. The Story That You Are Meant to Defeat, I think. And the Emperor's Daughter was this girl who was born to what should be like nothing but the perfect position for her potential to unfold and for her to have everything that she could ever want. But because of the controlling and obsessive nature of the emperor, who with nobody else to trust in the world made her his focus of all that is good and lovely, but like could not allow her shadow side to exist, could not allow her to be threatened on any level, could not allow her to interact with the world. And so even though there were lavish parties every night that she could hear, she never had a single friend, she never had a mother, she never had a party, she never had anything. She lived in the most like personal, isolated poverty, and it warped her that the emperor, who like was also her lover, because of this is a vision from this as a past life of, you know, kind of a situation, really warped her sense of what it meant to get her emotional needs met, because she didn't even have access to the outside world. And so he was her only access to emotional needs, but he was also her poisoner. He was also her executioner. So this is like where like we look at this story and we're like, what is this? This is where the Emperor's Daughter escapes the emperor because of us falling in love. Like, she's saving herself. She doesn't know that because she sees herself in the Good Samaritan. She sees herself in some escape vehicle or another, whether it be like the coach driver, you know, of the estate, or the soldier, you know, like this is the hero's journey bumping into the, you know, the emperor's control. So we have this story that should be one where it's like this is how it's done with the prince. The prince arrives. These two fall in love and save each other because of the dance of romantic attraction, looking at each other through the bookshelves, you know, whatever it is. And how many of us, you know, coming from some high control environment or some kind of high control situation, or even none of those things, but coming from a place of not knowing knowing that we're being like kept small where we are and needing to grow. Like, there's this escape from that place of my poison is my sustenance into like a new form of reverie with love. And this is a dark story, and it's dark because we're talking about forgiveness. Forgiveness is the realm of unforgivable things. And so this is also going to be where that girl, made vulnerable by the emperor and his conditioning of her, is then now abused, trying to be saved by saving in the name of love, because this is what this energy needs. So all of us who are in this pile and we're like, whoa, you know, like, this is not a small thing to forgive. We have 6 of Wands, which is like the victory card on the bottom of the deck. We're going to have a victory with this, but it's not easy to forgive. Like, we're having problems, I think. You know what I mean? I think if we're really able to sort of like go from like, you know, just sort of like, we're looking at this journey, this source of soul, you know, that has kind of like moved us over this sweep where we see like unforgivable things, engaging with stories that just beat you up and beat you up and beat you up. Never getting to the ascended portion of that goal around receiving love, because stuck in that part of the story that repeats over and over again. You're not free. There's nowhere you can go. If you try to escape, the next person to encounter you is going to do the same thing in a different way. That's what we need to forgive, sort of. I mean, there's a lot there, but when we talk about intimacy with self, intimacy with the divine, a divine love, like with a deity who we are able to worship, worship is like the most pure and vulnerable thing in the entire world. True worship and a true like love with the divine requires trust. So how do we end up with trust when we have to forgive this? as an experience that's like part of the dance of life. So let's get some cards, because I think that's what we need right now, and we're doing okay with time. So we started with I can't forgive this. Nope. No thank you. I will not be forgiving this story. I am opposed. I dissent. This is not a good story. This is not that I don't want to see it. I don't want to think about it. I want the other one where it all works out. So this Lover and Eros is kind of like, you know, why is it like this? Why are we looking at this? Why is this what we have to forgive? I don't like it. Well, for me, I don't want to forgive this. I get what this is. It's actually like family too. Like there's this aspect of family that comes in here. This very like insidious thing. I don't get that, but with the King of Swords, the Six of Swords, we have the Six showing up again, the Tower, and this Page of Cups. Huh. We have some more cards. Ah, the Hermit. So why do we have to forgive this? Can't we just put it go? Can't we just end the story and call it not that story? Nope. All right. With the High Priestess on this bottom of the deck, split for a second to the Five of Cups. Huh. This is about roles. Okay. This, I'm getting a really interesting thing. Something about like the role of lover and lover are two different things. I don't know what that means. All right, so with the King of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles, the Temperance, and the Ten of Pentacles, these are all Pentacles. This is going to be Earth. Okay, so, all right, this is a weird story. I'm having a hard time kind of grasping it, but with the Ten of Pentacles here is talking about wealth and generational wealth that's passed down. So this is going to be, you know, something that is passed down. Now the High Priestess at the bottom of the deck, we're talking about unspoken truths, unspoken things. But deeper than unspoken, the High Priestess represents, the reason why the High Priestess represents silence is, at this point for me, every time I look at this card, every time I feel this energy, it's not, it's actually kind of forced. The High Priestess has a role in the world and in community as the divine feminine aspect of God represented in divine form. In the, like, we have representatives and symbols, archetypes and symbols and representatives. Like, this is how the operation operates. This is how the system, you know, moves. And, you know, when we think about roles are a cheap, crappy, flimsy imitation of what representatives are. Roles are really fixed, like places, but representatives are constantly like moving. A representative is that which knows because it represents that which is. And so when we think about orienting ourselves into society based on these roles, we're screwing up because we're operating in roles because it's adherence to a order of duty. And representative says you stepped into a story, became familiar with it, became like allowed it to become like one with you in expression. So like, maybe that's a story of any story that you've lived through is one where you have taken your essence and you've taken all of the aspects of your personality and all of the aspects of your lens and your perception and your consciousness. You have walked into a story. You've been attracted into that story. We think we're attracted to people. We're more attracted to stories than we're attracted to people because we don't get to know the person until a long time after we get to know like a story that we have about them, because we always have stories about people that precede our knowing them. So like, you're always in love with the story first. So you always are attracted to the story first. And we think we're attracted to people, we're attracted to stories. That's the way that the genes express, and that's how they find their matches in terms of what needs to be worked out. authentically. Yeah, like your guides are saying, this is a whole gene pool situation here. And so you pick the stories that you enter into when you pick the people and the situations that you choose to fall in love with and you choose to breathe life into with your life by living through the experience of. So our guides are saying, when we talk about forgiveness, like first we have to move away from the personal narratives about, that everything happens because, you're punished. Like this is the divine saying you're not punished. Like these are stories that you came here to solve the puzzle on through you with your lineage, with a whole package of genes and traits and a whole program of what it meant to set yourself and everybody else free. Especially right now, this is the hardest stuff. And so, we forgive humanity and we forgive God by pulling our heads back from the small picture into the larger picture that says, you chose to tangle and dance and like with this, and we're here to support you through that in every single way. And so it's not an us against you, it's a us with you. And if you feel overwhelmed or you feel like you can't trust yourself anymore because the story was too hard or too terrible, they're saying like that's not really it. And so what we have to do in terms of like forgiving this is to first understand that like we got some stuff mixed up. We got some stuff mixed up about the way that we attend to relating to each other. And one of the first things that we mix up is this notion of the role of the lover and the actual lover. And I guess we're going to look at that a little bit, because with the King of Swords being about this heartless emperor that was essentially just consuming the creative life force of that divine feminine, capturing, keeping, consuming, controlling. I mean, if you want to get really broad with this, everyone who's entered into a lifestyle home with a high control dogma, everything, high control, all that high control, you're looking at the emperor's daughter. A weird love where poison is your sustenance, and it is a love. That's the creepiest thing. Like, every time I go to work with that energy, and I do, because in meditation, part of my work with the divine is becoming a representation. This is such an important little tidbit. So I'm going to pause here to bring us into this notion of representation, because we're talking about that here heavily. So part of my spiritual work and part of my prayer work and my reverie is I minister to souls. I do it in like the work that we're doing right now here. Like this is ministering to the souls of those in this collective. But when I am in prayer, in reverie, in that working with the divine in those unconscious realms, because the unconscious realms are the different planes of existence where the operating of all of the systems kind of does its thing. And so the underworld is there, but there's also, I wish I had a better way of explaining this, because I can't possibly explain it well here right now in this way, but there's so much going on, with interacting with that space. But when I go into those places and I do these readings and I'm able to see these visions and I'm able to attend to the souls that are sort of trapped in an enchantment of a story that has them captive, that is keeping them from ascending with the knowledge and the experience of their consciousness lifetime, it stays lodged in the unconscious psyche of every one of us. That's why nobody gets free until all of us gets free. And so what I will do when I'll do a collective reading, and it will apply to the collective, and every one of you in one way or another has an ancestor, has a part of your lineage. This is your collective, that story, a B story, if it resonated, was part of that collective, understood, had a gnosis with that reading about what was being said. And so when we, that just got me. That was just a whirlwind of a vision just there. Okay, yeah, so you guys are come on, corral it in, girl. So when we talk about what I'm doing a lot of times with, the reading, I'll identify the story and the structure and where the stuck point is. And from an energy workplace, from a prayerful place, I'll go into minister to that energy. And talking to that energy who's in this enchantment, this is a little girl who hasn't left her room since she was 6 or 7. and has had only like the barest possible interactions with servants who are there to just like clean her up. They're not allowed to speak to her. Their tongues are cut out. Like, it's very, very scary. So, and every time I fall into that vision, I get like freaked out, and I need to find my ground. Hold on. So anytime I kind of go towards her, I'm always trying to convince her that she can leave that room, and that she doesn't have to wait for this man anymore. He's not coming. She can like go home. Like, and there is another home. There is another love. There is other love. There's actually love beyond that. Like, there hasn't been an experience. I get it. You haven't been, like, I say it's energy in this place. I get that you haven't had the experience of another kind of love, and so this is exalted, and this is worshipped by you. But there is, and like, so, what it is to coax ourselves out of like a place of unforgiveness with this is actually to believe in a greater love, and to believe that a greater love can be had by us. And this takes overcoming our conditioning. Our conditioning is that girl in that room, in that enchantment, coping with the diseased love that she has been forced through, and intimacy that has been divorcing herself from herself, and yet like informing herself all at the same time. That's a very bad place. That's a very fractured place. It's a deeply unrooted place. She has to keep informing a fiction on love to sustain her sanity, because the reality is too grim to bear, even though she can walk out that door. And so when we think about the technology of forgiveness, the technology of forgiveness gets her out the door, because she can't leave that love in any meaningful way without forgiving the possibility of what it's done to her. And that's so confusing, right? I mean, is anybody else with me on like the total incomprehension of like how much it makes sense and doesn't? Can I get an amen? I don't want to do that. I want to do that. But no, I mean, like, for real, like, this is one of these things where, this King of Pentacles, this Page of Pentacles, this Temperance, and this Ten of Pentacles, there's no love in any of that. All that is control and perversion. Let's just be real. And so, when we look at this problem of this person that you need to forgive, like, unfortunately, the guides that we have are bringing us to an ancient picture, and they're saying this distortion that you lived through, that is this is a story that is ongoing, and that it exists unchanged until enough people are brave enough of soul character to move through, overcome it, break its chain, and create a new story in its place. One has to eat the other. There was this whole thing in that reading, sublimate. The technology of forgiveness works on the principle of sublimation. One thing has to sublimate into the being of another. An ice cube has to sublimate into the pot of water. It has to change its form. One form has to give way to another form. That's the sublimation process. And so the trick of forgiveness is the sublimation process, by virtue of a technology that sublimates the offense by the power of the love in that which is going to change whatever form it was given into something new. And this is very tricky stuff. And so when we talk about a role and a lover, the role of the lover and the lover are two different things, and we're talking about sublimation, and we're talking about archetypal story structures. Can I just tell you that I felt like a quake in the atmosphere when I just said that? So there's a stronghold here that we're about to break so wide open that I'm gonna have a sip of water. I'm gonna have some water to do this, because I saw something here. And I just got like, my whole body just like did a thing. Let's get excited about this. Okay, sublimation. Okay, so sublimation is when you break the story by creating a new one that takes the form of what that story was and turns it into a new form. And I want to get closer to what that means. I mean, some people have a better sense than others, and we will get closer to what it means. But at the heart of it, wherever we're taking notes, sublimation and the technology of forgiveness are very much related. And then, however, the divine genius is trying to kind of bring us through with this. And so when we think about this King of Pentacles as being like the word, the structures of control, the compliance of the army and the soldiers who march at the same time. Why do soldiers march at the same time? What's that about? Why are we breaking their pacing? Is that like, are you a better fighter if your natural stride is broken and your compliance stride is installed? Like, there's so much here about what is perverse love and what is not love, what is perverse loyalty. There's a lot of yeah, this is a mess. I'm sorry, I'm seeing way more than I can handle. I'm gonna have our guides kind of like steer me toward the King of Swords and the Hermit. So the King of Swords and the Hermit is going to be this moment, this breaking point in the story of the false love, where the Emperor's daughter escapes the Emperor. And with the King of Swords and the Hermit here, what we're talking about when she's escaping the Emperor, we always talk about the Hermit as following, like the Hermit's following the Spirit, is led by the Spirit. This is Ariadne's thread. This is intuition. This is something that calls you out of the fixed structure that you're in, the cage that you're in. So the conditioning that you are in is a better way of putting it. When your guides are saying, when you think about this in terms of you, think about your conditioning. All of the circumstances in your life. If we're using the example of the Emperor's daughter, everything that locked you into that room, and that was not your fault, right? Everything that like put you in the situation that you're in, that you now have to cope with and manage with and pull a story through with your perspective and your experience and your love. All of that conditioning, to escape it, is to first hear a voice that comes from somewhere outside of your book of rules, your book of edicts, the compliance structure. What is false God is the false authority that claims it's God, always. On the way to divinity, you always encounter the one that claims that it is what you're looking for because it knows that you don't know what you're looking for. The Emperor's daughter does not know that she doesn't know what love is. She just knows that it's not what she's being given and that she wants something that is true in the form of love instead of something that is false in the form of love. That's the best that she can do. And so this is that spirit. That's going to be the divine saying, shh, this isn't it. Out that door, you hear that laughter. You can experience that too. So it takes different forms. It can take the form of like the person who drops off the water every day as a signal that says you want more. You want to encounter more than just what you're encountering. You want to have more than just the experience that you're having. You want to grow in intimacy with self, in intimacy with other, in intimacy with God, in intimacy with creation. You want to be a part of that creative process. As a creative compilation. You want to be a part of that creative compilation of life and living and movement through like this is beautiful. I'm seeing this whole dance within this little lantern. And so when you move out of that space of where you've been told it's at, with the Six of Swords, we've got the 6 over here, we've got the 5 of Wands, you're going to have competition and conflict. Your new view is going to face the competition of all of those that came before. That in one way or another, we're compliant to this notion of roles, which is different than representatives. This is so hard to break through because what it's saying is you have to forgive the system that set up the disaster, and to do that you have to look at the system failure. It's so critical for us to not blame each other at this juncture because everyone is tripping on the acid of their own insanity from their own system's failures, and it's leading to like pictures of distortion that these competing views, what's true, what's false, what's real, what's not real. And we're not going to get anywhere with that as humanity. Five of Wands, competing views. You know, we want to escape the Emperor, but then there are those that say the Emperor is the only way. We worship him. That is love. That is the love that we've known. Any other love is in defiance of the Emperor. We serve the Emperor. You know, you're a threat. Your escape is a threat. There's that chorus. Then there's also this inner chorus that loved the Emperor, that only knew love through the Emperor, but also remembers the punishment. And so, you know, when it comes to, like, how do we love the divine in each other? How do we love the divine writ large? The divine, in the form of, like, a false god, is a role, not an experience, you know? And the other, you know, someone in the form of, like, partner in a very specific way, or, you know, is, again, that divine relationship can't be defined by a role, but we use them to operate in terms of, like, how is it safe to get intimate if we don't have, like, some form of organization around, like, what we do and we do not do. But that's where we're looking at having to change the script a little bit, and that's why this forgiveness is hard, because we really like a story. Like, we have to think about our part in, like, falling in love with the story that sustains us, even if that story hurts us. This story is falling in love with the story that we're given, that is going to give us sustenance, and there's not another alternate story that, like, works within the framework of whatever desire might be. Desire is hijacked around, you want these roles. You want to be in that role. You want to be participating, you know, in creation with the substance of love in relationship to these roles. And then when we see people sort of throwing the roles all the way away, everybody sort of gets, like, disoriented, and we're like, no, like, there are a lot of people who love those roles because those roles are what we bet our life on. You know, like, those roles are what we made all of our decisions by. And while people represent no roles and they're doing really good with it, like, there's still a love affair with the roles. And a lot of us have a much bigger love affair with the roles than we do with what it means to experience the other. And that's because we always fall in love with the roles before we fall in love with the other. And if we only ever get to the place where we fall in love with the roles, it starts to fall in love with the other, but then the role gets disjointed, and now the other isn't there, and now we have problems, and it's all wrong. And I think it's because we have a system of roles instead of a system of representation. Representing the divine feminine aspect of God is being really responsible in a relationship. Representing the divine masculine aspect of God is being really responsible in the relationship. But it's not but a role would never fit the divine aspect of God that is either form of divine masculine or divine feminine, or what is created between them, which is the entire range and all of the expression therein within community, as an expression of community. And so we have something that is so like kaleidoscope in nature when it comes to participating with divine love, that what we're asked to do in terms of forgiving a person is, like, really pick our heads up, really pick that head all the way up. Because there are problems here with the High Priestess on the bottom of the deck in terms of the silence, like, is the room that the Emperor keeps her in. You know, the Emperor's daughter was the most powerful, and he used her power. He actively kept her in that room, using all of the resources that she had been given to create into his empire. He was siphoning all of that for himself so that he would have legitimacy when he talked about his magic. She was all the magic that he was using. And as long as she's silent, nobody knows that and gives all the glory to him. And so when we think about this cold King of Pentacles, Page of Pentacles, this forced pacing, enforced pacing, this temperance is the only, temperance being, like, you know, a balance and healing, and the Ten of Pentacles being about compensation. You know, the compensation here then becomes so important. More important than love. Let me see. Yeah, that's why we have vengeance. So when we talk about the technology of forgiveness and we talk about vengeance, vengeance is definitely debt. It's, you owe me. You owe me. I did the right thing here. I escaped the Emperor. I escaped the Emperor, and I escaped the Emperor to help someone, not really just helping myself, but helping someone. And then that ended up also hurting me, like, you know, in one way or another. You know, this Don Juan is a romantic love that is, like, immature in nature. It's not a mature love. It's it's young, right? So it's like that Samaritan is falling in love not because you see the person and all of their qualities as being like worship worthy. It's because you see the person and all their qualities as being like something that you like can fix, can solve with your love, and then they won't be there anymore. And so then you decide to join forces on this love where you're being saved from whatever you're running from, and they're being saved from you needing to have the experience with somebody else. There's so much there. I'm having a hard time seeing it all of a sudden. It kind of fell off there's like constellations that I'm being shown. All the ways that this shows up and fails. All the ways that this shows up and fails. So, you know, this is a template. This is our archetypal structure that our guides are showing me. And they're saying like every way that this story like shows up where you're falling in love with the person's potential and not falling in love with the person themselves ends in the same way, where you're just being used and abused by love itself, and your poison is your sustenance. Like that's the story structure's arc unless we change it. And you know, so what does it mean to change it? And let's look at what it means to change it. This is going to be, I think, like a really long reading, but that's okay. I might do this like over, we might like roll the dice let's do this over like three enrichments, because like there's a lot here. Forgiveness is more than one. I wanted to give you guys a choice, but I think I'm failing as a leader in this way right now. But let's see, let's keep on going. I want to try and give you guys a choice. We'll see if I can do it. We'll see if I can do it. So with this Eight of Wands being about the interference, our guides are laughing at me. They're like, if you don't have a choice, maybe that's everybody. Okay, so anyway, our guides are laughing at me a little bit, but what they're saying, you know, but this thing about taking care of ourselves first, you know, being able to like make sure that ourselves are like 100% taken care of and not trying to like push. Yeah, okay, let me just listen, because you guys are saying like there's a lot here. So the King of Pentacles with the Five of Pentacles is an isolating kind of position. Like this Emperor alone can give you what you need. And so like the King of Pentacles represents like the realm of earthly things. So the King of Pentacles is the provider. This provider alone can like solve the problem of your deprivation. This provider alone, this arrangement alone is going to take care of all of those emotional needs. It's a false promise is what I'm being told by our guides. If you get enough money, then everything will be okay. Like, not at all. If you get the right person, then everything will be okay. It doesn't operate like that, because there's no finishing point. One of the biggest lies that we've been told is this notion of heaven, where you start here and you end there, and now you get a reward. This constellation of soul expansion and becoming into our divine like selves is a long journey. And so part of what we're doing here on earth and like, you know, with this technology of forgiveness is dismantling these stories that lord over us like false gods and goddesses that we worship with our agreement with them. When we agree that only this story alone of, you know, boy meets girl and takes me out of the unhappiness and into the happiness, or like any variation of that, doesn't have to be gender. You know what I mean? Like we have, it's escape from to love. There's a word for this. If I can find it, it might be great. And I can't, so I'm gonna keep on moving. So with this Page of Pentacles and the Star being about, like, that's when this Emperor's daughter, you know, takes that first step out. She isn't taking that first step out with riches. She's not taking that first step out prepared. She's taking that first step out with a hunch that Spirit is like leading her, and it's gonna lead her right into conflict every single time. It's going to lead her into conflict with her former self and all of her former beliefs and all of the former structures. It's going to lead her into conflict with all of the people in compliance to whatever the agreed upon tribal belief is. It's going to lead her into conflict with what it means to attain these unreachable goals. And like the probability therein of her, like, so like she's got to face the facts when she leaves the Emperor's castle. Yes, she's leaving poisoned love. Yes, she is leaving a situation that is like unforgivable. And she is saving herself and she's saving her lineage by escaping into whatever situation ends up being the new one. She's moving into another story. She's taking on another story. She's going to enter at the shadow of that other story because of where she is, which means that other story is always going to test her resolve related to her love for herself. And it might not just do it once, it might do it many times. And so that's really what this phase of becoming is all about. You know, this self-love with the Tower is born of no foundation and no support. It is not born of a council of agreement of your value. When the divine aspect of God in the divine feminine, in the Emperor's daughter, moves into community for her sustenance instead of a relationship that she thought was going to provide her sustenance but brought her poison instead. When she does that, it's treacherous because empire and emperor are related and community is still not free, neither is she. And so she has to get a broader view on what she's dealing with in terms of like a landscape. And so we forgive the divine through the process of escape, not because it's easy, but because that love for ourselves sustains us no matter what. And that love for ourselves is the divine love that we have with us. It does not come from another place. It is not you alone and without the divine love. Every ounce of divine love that has been in you through every single time you picked up and you said, this is poisonous love. I'm probably not going to get what I need out there, but I'm not staying here. That was the love of divine, the divine moving you in that Six of Swords to a better place. When you are following divine guidance, you are always in a calmer place, no matter what the fight against you is. When you are moving against divine guidance, you are in nothing but a place of restlessness because the divine is calling you towards your path, calling you towards that retribution, towards that elevation with this Temperance card and this Two of Wands. The star represents not the destination, but the symbol of hope that calls you out of the cage. Temperance here, you know, is being able to plan to move towards that space. And I think it's really interesting that we have the King of Swords on both sides here of the spread. We have the King of Swords on this side and the King of Swords on this side. And what I'm seeing with this is that, like, there's a cycle here. Let me get some more on that. That's like really interesting. Let me just pull back, because there's a cycle you have to go through here when it comes to forgiveness, and it's heartlessness to a place of like healthy detachment, and you can't. Your guys are saying you can't think that heartlessness is healthy detachment. It's not. And that's why we first enter when your guys are saying just slow it down and show them. So when you're in a situation where you're like, I have to leave, you know, because this is poison, and then you go into a world where there's a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of conflict and a lot that comes against your self-love, your expression of self-love. There's a tower around it that leaves you feeling like a little kid that is like taking your little bit of love that you have in hope towards a world that like is offering you stories to step into. And now we have the treacherous terrain because we have to avoid this story that is the false story about love and find our way to the true story about love. And so the false story about love is that romantic love saves you. Romantic love that's where we're getting it wrong. Romantic love is something. It's important. We're going to look at that in a second. What is it? But it's not a savior. It's not a faculty of salvation. And so everyone seeking romantic love as a faculty of salvation will be failed by it. And they will think it's a failure of God. And they'll think it's a lack of provision of God. And that's really interesting because we're kind of taught to do that in a lot of different ways. And the journey begins, like the moment of self-actualization where we have that true sense of the lover with this Ace of Cups is the one who is not going to leave us in that cage they're going to open the door and they're going to say, hey, like, there's a lot going on out here at this party, and there's delicious meats. I'm not like, I don't know why that came through the way that it did, but like, you know, like I see the banquet, you know, these old timey banquets, like, you know, like the ancient banquets, like seem to be just like a lot of like what looks like meats. But anyway, and so when we look at this Ace of Cups as being our first true love story. Now there's false love stories everywhere, but our first true love story is the love story that is forged between the self and the self. You know what I mean? The part of you that is with this, like, you know, this room, this cage with the Empire is like the delusional stories about what love is, that suffice as sustenance, but only in a way that is like poisonous, because in order to keep that love true, there can't be any external influence of love's existence, and so it's really, really demented. But when you kind of step out of it and you move into this other space with a notion of what romantic love can be, you have to first understand that you're in love with the story, otherwise it wouldn't be hard to like leave it. That allegiance to the story of this love as being like forever in a certain kind of way, like I don't want to like fight with anyone's allegiance there, because it's such a powerful thing. But you know, coming full circle on this with this Ten of Pentacles and this King of Swords, let's get a couple more. I want to get more cards. Let's see what we're doing. And I'm being shown to get like an interesting set of cards. Okay, we're gonna move in it. We're gonna zigzag with this a little bit, because no one's satisfied. I mean, I'm not the only one who's like not satisfied with like, that's not it. We know it's not it. Everyone's tried to like make that it. It's not it. Okay, but what is it, right? You know, we wanna know a little bit more about like what it is to find love in the Emperor's world and be in love in the Emperor's world. Do you not like that, Emperor? And we're talking about forgiveness. And that's why this is interesting, because like you can't be in love without this forgiveness. Like that's like one thing requires the other. I don't know what, because it has something to do with about like the heart's vice, healing and reputation, and Pluto and transformation in reverse, with the 11th house being friendship, group creativity, community, humanity, hope, tribe, festivals, discoveries, common goals, rebellion, experimentation, and the future. Yes. So you're like, I'm gonna do something cool with these cards. We're gonna get like this little cute little check-in from our guides on these various things, because there's such a I feel like a river of complaints in like the best possible way. So let me grab these. So you guys are like, you've already thrown the story away. Like a lot of you have already thrown the story away, but don't know where else to find divinity. Because if divinity and if God's not some story about a guy who like died for you because you sinned. I'm not laughing because we did go over that. I'm so mad at that story right now. Everyone I meet is obsessed with that story, and I just feel like it's okay. Letting it go, moving on. But like if you find that the foot of the cross is just what it is, then there's a disappointment about the story of God. And you know, if you find that the foot of the cross is what it is in romantic love, and you're like, you know, this is not it, then you know the story has failed. And so when the stories fail, this is our opportunity to get a true encounter. But a lot of times we want to, you know, reject the true encounter because we're so in love with these stories that we just try to find them to recreate them over and over again. I love that that's like what you can see. So when we think about what this forgiveness movement is about, and it's just so important for us to grasp this, we have to put down the fight we're having with these stories. We have to put down the fight we're having trying to attain these stories for ourselves. And we have to stop thinking about roles as like fixed positions. Nothing in nature is fixed. It's always moving constantly. So why do we have these fixed position structures around growth and how we relate to each other? When if you look in nature, like not a single thing is fixed over contractual agreements over time. And this isn't really about knocking those contractual agreements around like that they're fine, but it is about knocking a depreciation of life based on having a criteria of quality of life that includes this story, that you're judging your life as being insufficient in some level. Now, not everyone is disappointed with romantic love, but most people are disappointed with the story, right? Because romantic love, when you encounter what it really is, it actually ends up being like a deep, enduring, comfortable partnership. It's not like, I'm being shown that like true romantic love is like, they're showing me so many things that I don't have a word for. I don't know. I mean, that's a whole reading, I think, unto itself. I'm trying to look at this. What is that? It's the divine genius, like, operating. It's just hard to explain. Okay, so weed out the negative thoughts. So you guys are basically saying, like, what does the unforgiveness do? The unforgiveness is about vengeance. It's not fair. These people think that they can get away with. Look at them. Look at us. They don't think. That one's right. That one's wrong. You know what this is? That's that. You're the judge and the jury, and that's how you operate in the world. And you're the judge and the jury because nobody's doing it right, and you know how to do it right because you're the Samaritan. Because you did it right. You helped the person on the side of the road. You recognize what that was to be the person on the side of the road. You've been the person on the side of the road. You know what it is to have survived that and vowed never to leave anyone like that before. You are coming from a place of judgment over those who walk past the body and scream about their glorious nation. You know what I mean? Like, that's a place of love for humanity, but it's not a place of being able to be open to receive love yourself, because now you have cursed the humanity that, like, perpetuates this blindness. But you've also, like, looked at God and said, you created those people, you created them, you expect me to care? And so there's a way in which it kind of swings back and creates its own perverse truth, you know? And so when we try to forgive these stories, there's a lot of reckoning that happens. There's a lot of really painful reckoning that happens. And with look how cute. I love these little cards. They're fun. When we think about what Spirit wants to kind of, I think we're gonna, like, leave this reading for the next one, and I'm gonna see if I can get through all three of them, because this is craziness here. But with the your hot, Chiron, and reputation, let yourself be loved, you grumpy little bug. Recognizing your worth and your value means that you forgive these stories, because these stories don't hold you back. They don't define you. You're leaving them in the past. You're not thinking about them again. You're releasing yourself from them. Reputation and let yourself be loved, you grumpy little bug. Why do the roles have anything to do with the way that you're loved? Because, like, a lot of the time that we are barred entry into relationships with each other because all of their little roles are filled by people that they're not happy with. And they stay in lives with people who are filling the roles, and nobody's happy with any of the people in the roles that are being filled by those roles. And then other people are barred from entry, and so there's no new energy in those loops of, like, despair and frustration. And so, you know, we are moving into a new, like, place in terms of what it means to, like, have competence, achievement. This card represents the empire and the patriarchy. And it also represents the new system of values that are going to be put place in the wake of the empire's fall. And so let yourself be loved, you grumpy little bug. You know, it's kind of saying, like, this forgiveness is about getting you to the place where you can actually, like, show up for life, experience life, act. Like, there's such a darkness on this pile in terms of, like, if it's not this, it's nothing. If it's not some variation on this, I don't want it. It's opposition to you in a kind of way, with Pluto in reverse being about transformation and own who you are. If you stay in the one spot, the Emperor's daughter who is in that spot is in a bad spot. And if she stays in that spot, then she's going to be in a trance her whole life. And every time she deviates from that trance, there will be punishment. But if she goes back to that trance in order to stave off the punishment, there's never going to be freedom. This Tower and this Ace of Cups go together. Letting the Tower fall on whatever that story structure God was, letting that relationship fail, letting that story about that relationship fail, one or the other. You don't have to let the relationships fail if you let the story about it fail. so that a different story can come into play, so that the roles can be turned into representations of where I'm coming from as me in this phase representing this, and how do you want to interact with that through your representation and like your expression that says I am not a role. I'm not going to be stuck in a role. I'm never going to fulfill that role. I'm never going to be perfect in that role. That role isn't me. I'm this as represented by all of these things that I'm interacting with. And that's not having like an open door policy with intimacy. It's something completely different, relating to each other in a totally different way. And so you guys are saying if forgiveness is going to be the thing that lets you be loved, and if to do so, you have to face this transformation away from like this story is terrible and horrible and is how I now define relationships and God's love, to I tangled with that story. It brought me to the edge. It broke me. It made me feel like I don't want to try at ever encountering this again. And that's it. That's the story. And that's not forgiveness, that's no forgiveness in that. And even if there are versions of the story where people are like, I just decided that I was going to love that emperor with all of my heart and, make the best of it because I know that that's what I'm doing right now. Or there's people in that story that said like, I tried and I did everything that I could, but at the end of the day, they're there and I'm here and we're coexisting and we're making a good partnership of it. Like, this isn't really about condemning people in relation to each other with roles. It's about forgiving the story that didn't live up to itself and forgiving the person that like didn't live up to the story. That's where this roles and reputation and patriarchal and structures, is not letting you be loved. And so to throw that out and say like, I love that idiot, not in a romantic way anymore, but we're besties. And what does it mean for you to re-engage with desire, either with that person or with another person or with, life? You know what I mean? Like that's what this, to engage with change and transformation and know that who you are is very separate from the story and that you lived through, the experiences that you had and the way that they scarred you. You are not those experiences. You are not the best things that you've ever done. You are not the worst things that you are ever done. You're not any of those things. You're something completely different. And so where we forgive this story is in a remembrance and a self-actualization that we graduate from like, that role didn't fit me. That relationship did not live up to the story structure that was promised when I entered that story structure. That story structure has never lived up. What story am I entering into, or how am I changing the story from within to make it a very different structure over my life? That's how we forgive. We kind of pull back with this King of Swords and this Ten of Pentacles from the debt collector mentality, and we move into like, the world is my oyster, the divine genius is mine. I can forgive this because I can transform. If I can't transform, I can't forgive it. But if I can transform, I can forgive it. And so, I think I'm going to leave that there. I am going to attempt to make another 2. This is at an hour. And I keep on like having this thing with my guides where they're like, keep it simple, or don't. But like, like I do like go on and on. A lot of it is just, I take a lot of cards out. I take a lot of cards out and I look at them because we have the negative thoughts on the bottom of the deck. All of this unforgiveness is like people in your brain with situations and circumstances that sing the chorus of unforgiveness and interferes with every loving connection that you could possibly make. You're supposed to have that King of Swords, shrewd, dispassionate vantage point when you look out on the sea of people and determine how it is to relate to them. Because you're looking at everybody's archetypal stories. Do I want to enter that story? No, yes. It's not about the people. The people in there are calling you forward. Your soul family is, when you're running after the stuff that you love, you're going to run into the people that you love, and that's where your soul family is. It's not the specific person that you are longing for, that you have that crave for. It is that archetype. If it becomes the person, then the person has to uphold this end of a bargain that they may not want to be going with you on your transformation. Your transformation is kind of a solo thing. And so we forgive God a structure that doesn't comply with the structure imposed upon us when it comes to what it means to relate in love, by like understanding that we are still in love with the Emperor, definitely. But we also know that the Emperor is not good for us, and the Emperor is keeping us from transforming in the right way. And all of the negative thoughts that we have condemning the Emperor and his structures is a way of saying, I love you, I love you, I love you, I'm still here. It's a weird thing. I had to learn this too. Like, my guide showed me a house, and they showed me, like, I was sitting there and I was looking at this Emperor in this vision, and I was trying to coax this girl from this enchantment and, you know, her misery, really. And I just kept on like looking at the Emperor and being like, you disgusting pig. You know, like, look at you, like, look at yourself. Don't you want, you know, just vengeance, pure vengeance. Like, don't you see yourself? Do you see the disgusting face that you wear? You know what I mean? Like, that's all that my mind could do with negative thoughts. I wasn't even able to like pay attention to the task at hand because I was like, oh, I hate you. You know what I mean? Like, just enjoying, like, wanting to hurt that energy so much. Like, with every atom in my body, I wanted to, you know, inflict pain, you know, to this energy that thought that it had a right to tell this girl that she can't live her life because of its ugly edicts, you know. And my guys are like, why are you in the house? Why are you following the Emperor around, complaining about how disgusting he is? What are you doing? You're not with the girl who you need, that you're here to like help. You're here to like help coax her out, you know? You're following this guy. You're like loving the fight. You're enjoying the energy of his like conquering nature, and you're wanting to put him in his place, and you're doing that. And that's way more important to you than helping free that girl. Because you could have left the house hours ago, but no, you're still in here yelling at the Emperor. And then I saw this, and I saw myself walking through life, looking at every person I met and being like, yeah, your compliance is obvious. Like, you know what I mean? You know, like, really, like, that attitude. And like, that's just me walking around following the Emperor around, you know, instead of bringing the miracle. You know, so when we like come to forgiveness, we sort of like stand before the threshold of what forgiveness is. And I'm gonna put this into a 3-part series. I wanted to do it like pick a card style today. I might push through and like make it happen. I don't know, but if I can, I will. Wow. I might just give you 2 choices, but we'll see. But what I am seeing here is that like this is an ongoing conversation that we're really having about like the nature of forgiveness. Like, you know, writ large, we know that it's not about just forgiving that like annoying person who deserves vengeance. We've always known that. We've always known that at a head level. But getting this to a heart level is like really teasing out what is for us, not what we have to sacrifice for. You know, we forgive because we want to transform, not because like transforming is hard and it's painful. And so like when we think about that Emperor's daughter, she first escapes the Emperor and then she escapes into the Empire, and the community reflects the Emperor, and there seems to be no escape, and it's only pain and suffering. And that's where you have the annihilation that is like, I can't love God, right? And so we really have to work out the relationship that we have with the environment that we're in, because the high priestess has to keep moving. She either has to keep moving out of community to the farthest regions where she is silent and unreachable because she is on the margins where there is no one, or she has to contend with the love that she has for the Empire's daughters and sons, basically, versus like the Emperor and the love that she has for the Emperor, you know. So the love that she has with the fight is still staying there, but there's a reason to work this stuff out. Like there's a reason why we become the representatives of the power of forgiveness in the world. Like there's a reason why we do it, and it is kind of foggy, you know. I don't have a perfectly clear picture about this, and that's why this is an ongoing, you know, or an ongoing reading on forgiveness. This is step 1 of thinking about forgiveness. First, we know that we enter the stories that we are drawn to, that we are called to, that our various like soul contracts are tied up in, and that there's no free will in that. So stop blaming yourself for choosing the wrong story here, there, or the other place. You're entering in that story to heal it. You're entering into that story to heal whatever that means, and sublimate the story from one form into your form. from a form that tried to eat you and tell you who you are to a form where you're taking that story now to your story and you're making it yours in the various ways that it is changing form. It is no longer the form that you stepped into. It's the form that you made it. You brought creator energy and it's sublimated to you. But there's no like clearing it out exorcism situation here, because we are contained in a whole. And so like forgiveness at the very loftiest place is going to be where we really tackle that notion of like forgiving what is contained within the whole. How do you forgive the cancer in the body? You cut that out, right? You just cut it out. You don't forgive it. Well, kinda. There's something there that we got to look at. There's a reason why the body is doing what it shouldn't do. There's an operating thing that's happening here. And this, again, we're not condemning sickness, but we're looking at the biological model of God. And we're looking at the world, and we're looking at areas of the world where we see cancer. And of course we want vengeance. We want to cut it out. But we got to heal it so that it's not taking more victims. It's not taking more cells. And so getting in touch with the love we have for community. You know, the emperor's daughter has to fall in love with community. She has to spend time falling in love with the community. And that's also going to be dealing with the fact that the emperor's influence and the emperor's structures and what it means to deal with the emperor within herself, which means like she had a love with that energy. She loved what that energy had to offer in a story until she tried to step into herself, and it was not going to work out. And so this miracle here is saying forgiveness is a miracle. It's not a function of logic. It's not something that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to forgive the emperor, but you have to do it to like, you have to, it's more than that. It doesn't make sense to forgive the situation that the emperor, yeah, I can't get this channel all the way because it's hard. The miracle here, the synergy here, the healing in the divine masculine and the Merkaba and the third eye chakra. The Akashic records is all of our consciousness. It's our collective consciousness. The Trinity is the Father, the Mother, okay? False religion cuts out the mother because it's lying, right? The divine masculine and the divine feminine. So you have the impulse, and then you have the earth. You have the sun and you have the earth. That which creates life of itself and that which inspires that life. The sun inspires the life that is created of the mother. What is created between them is consciousness. That is the Christ. That is the Son. It is a Trinity. And it continues to like, that's the Merkaba. We have the third eye chakra that looks at these patterns and looks at these archetypal patterns as being part of that whole and that system of creation and as we're creative. So we can forgive that huge big picture. But at a personal level, you know, we have to take that big picture and put it into this little picture of the offense of the horrible person, you know, who you have to forgive, and say the miracle here is I'm freeing myself, because the bigger picture tells me that I entered into that archetypal story, I tangled with it, I changed it, I sublimated it, or I'm in the process of sublimating it, and it's not a pretty experience. There's a lot that I did here for the love of humanity, for the love of myself, for the love of the version of myself that is still entangled in time, in that dream, in that delusion. And the synergy that is this new dreaming and this new energy and the miracle of faith that comes with this Chiron healing. And healing, we have healing twice. I don't think we know what structure is. I don't think we know what agency is without the corruption and without the poison. I think we're all like the emperor's daughter, leaving that room where we're repeating the enchantment in order to keep ourselves sane and encountering the echoes of the emperor's rule everywhere that we try to escape from that room with, and feeling like that is God. But the sixth here, showing up several places, tells us that we're going from chaos into calm with this process, and that the chaos that you enter is like the beginning of entering into like what it means to bring order. And what it means to bring order from that place of intuition is to get in touch with the divine masculine aspect of yourself that is healthy, that is power. And so, you know, forgiveness is power. It's coming into your own power, into your own authority, into your own agency, into your own structuring of your world and your protections. Once you do that, you can enter into romance. Before that, you're going to get conquered. And so we forgive this process because it tells us how not to enter, so that we can begin to like transform, sublimate, you know, move past all of that interference that is the screeching of the violins around like the story interference. Move those stories out of the way and think about what it is for you to have a love story within yourself where you connect with this energy and move into the world empowered by it, sublimating that story of the emperor over your life into the emperor that you are. And so this third eye chakra is about, you know, like we see the bigger picture so that we can move ourselves, so that we can go through the movements, and so that we can recognize the formula. And forgiveness has several formulas, but all of them are a release, a technology of release, and all of them are empowering, and all of them are cleansing and clearing of old stories and a beginning of a new story. We're going to leave it here unfinished, I think, for now. I mean, I'm going to try to come back with this notion of a pig card because I did really want to have like choices here. I did think that this was going to be hard, but Spirit is saying, you know, let it move the way it's moving. See what comes through today, and if I want to add another one, you know, on Monday or something, I will. But, you know, forgiveness for right now, it's a process that we are stepping into with understanding a bigger picture, sublimating the heartless King of Swords to the like heartfelt yet heart-informed detached King of Swords. We have to sublimate the small picture of that person deserves punishment into the bigger picture of I don't need to exact any revenge or debt. I have a connection with the divine that informs my strength, my agency, and my power in the world. And that story is dead and no longer exists for me. And with the wind washes away, I have sublimated it. I am more powerful than it. It is not more powerful than me. I'm not still hearing that song. And so like there's such a utility in this technology, but we're going to keep at it. We're going to do at least 2 more. Who do you need to forgive? And romantic love is the first person you need to forgive. And whoever is that symbol for you in your life is someone you need to forgive. You need to forgive what that represents and what that represented for you and what it ended up being and what it ended up not being. Like the forgiveness has to happen because it's not that you were failed in a certain kind of experience in life on a certain way, in a certain kind of something. It's more than that. So, you know, I hate leaving it here because I hate leaving things in like a sad place. Well, let's not do that. Let's just take the extra time. It won't even take that long. I was doing energy work that left me with like a really like stiff neck. So every time I look over at the cards, there's like a pain point, and I wonder what the symbol of them. First, yeah, basically to see this thing through, you know, a lot of muscles are atrophied. A lot of muscles are not what they could be. And so when it comes to your heart and how you naturally love and remembering love and like encountering romantic love, almost has to do it from scratch in a new way. And that doesn't mean going back in time for like a child, you know, hood, like adolescent state of like what romance was when you were, you know, deciding what romance was. That's not it. It's like, there's pain in the release that leads to like a bigger picture. It's you can't really, you have to mourn and yeah, you guys are saying like, you know, when it comes to an archetypal structure, when it comes to any kind of archetypal structure that we're in, the story that we're in, there's always love. There's always the love in the story that you're in one way or another. You know, very, very rarely do we leave a story completely without having to like wrestle with the love that we had. So there is this grieving that sort of has to take place about what love wasn't, what romantic love was co-opted by this story with these roles in it, you know, and these people playing these parts. Well, what is it then if it's not that? And so, you know, this healing that comes in is about discovery and rediscovering that divine masculine union. You know, we have to have the union in ourselves established before we have that union out of ourselves. That's absolutely true. And it's truly satisfying to have that union within self too. I mean, there's also that. But in terms of, yeah, let's see. What could this look like if it's not looking like this story in front of us? Rotation, ooh. And Neptune and dreaming. You know, this is a reading onto itself actually, but summer, you know, so the happiest, like, so like there's a joke, I don't know if it's a joke, but I know exactly what that summer card means. That summer card is like your best year. So I don't know if anyone has their best year. Does everybody have a best year? Can everybody think of like one year where it was just the best? And everyone has like a summer that like was in the best year, that is the best summer. And there is a feeling that goes along with that best summer. Romantic love is more about like a relationship with being in love with life and being in love with yourself in life and the way that you're perceived in life. And it's a love affair with you, an interaction with others, and having it like be firing. So like a good example of what this would mean is like you love all the people that are in the room, they love you, you feel it, and like that's weird that that's going to come up as like romantic love because it's confusing, because doesn't that just seem like friendship? With this rotation here though, what I'm being shown is that like it's not a room, it's an arena, and in an arena, yeah, like this is hard to grasp. Yes, you have people that are there for you, like to be in romantic partnership with and to build in companionship with. But there's something here about the rotation and the web and what it means to weave a life with dreaming. There's something about that being with antimony, like an energy of self. I mean, this is a little confusing. It's a soul journey that you take on your own, and what you allow to sort of plant into what you're creating in the way of a creation of a life, what you like allow to root in with you. These are going to be the stories that that end up being the stories of your life. The Akashic records hold the stories of your life. And so it's ultimately, when we're being told here about what romantic love really is, Eros, it's a union with the divine. It's a union with the divine within that like we create our life with. It doesn't seem to be a mission that we like necessarily take with another on a permanent basis. Like there's something here about rotation. Now, rotation with roles, like we started this reading talking with this notion of sublimation. Okay, that's like when a role has to sublimate to like the reality of the felt experience of that, like, you know, living through that story. That changes the story right there. Now, what are you going to do with it once you've sublimated the role, or, you know, into something? Like that's when you start to step into this notion of being a representative of what within that story. This is going to be where your love stories end up being. You are in love with being a representative of what you're a representative of is what that true love is. And where you find that true love is also where you find others that love like that in this way around those things. And you experience that intimacy of self and that intimacy with others. And when it comes to picking a person or the person that's meant for you, that is related to a rotation, however long it might be, in terms of some kind of lesson learned with your soul expansion and what is planted essentially in, like, you know, your life. These things are meant to change and grow and in rotation. And so there's something to that that is like sublimating that small picture into a larger picture that kind of helps us forgive it. So there's a lot to forgiveness. It's really not just like one movement. And so I'm going to leave it there because I think that this can only be taken in bite sizes. And as much as I wanted to give you guys choices with the roll of the dice, I think we're going to not be able to do that. I'll see what I can do a little bit later about like at least one other choice, but I'm going to leave this as it is. And I'd love to hear like what you guys think of all of this, because it's open-ended. It leaves things sort of open-ended. I think it leaves things where we've left things before. I think we're seeing a lot of what we've seen before. But in terms of, you know, why we're getting all these echoes is because forgiveness is about having a bigger picture, so to sublimate the smaller things too. We need organized belief, because we need a container that holds our belief. That doesn't mean that that's the divine masculine. Organized, structural, supporting, active aspect of what holds our soul vision, our belief, in order to like find it to be true. We do need to find that within ourselves and within the world. And it's more like we need to find it within ourselves and then create it in the world. There's divine guidance at play here. And so forgiveness is a faculty of having a bigger belief system. Without a bigger belief system, it's almost like the illogical nature of forgiveness means that you have to sublimate that like illogical picture to a picture that is broader, that makes more sense. And that's the movement. And so, you know, like, do you need a belief system? Yes, you need a belief system. In order to have faith operational in the way that you need it to be, you need a belief system. In order to forgive, you need a belief system. You need a belief system that you invest in, that you like, that you believe, you know, that says that this offense is not the final word, that this labyrinth is not all that there is, that there is something bringing us through this, that there's something to the other side. And so I will try to come back with that, you know, in a second part to this reading, if not a third part. Like, there's so much more to this than I realized sitting down. And so I think we're going to do justice and have justice where justice is due, and like, let this be where we start, which is like, you know, we need a system of belief that allows us to forgive. Once you have that, there's that dispassionate place that you can sit and find and operate with people who are not in the same place that you are at in terms of whatever you see of the world. So rather than be a tyrant that forces everyone to see it your way, it's how do you move through Emperor's world. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there later. Maybe later today, if not later in the week. But I'm gonna leave this here for now, and I will be back soon.